Conan, what is best in life?
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
That is good. That is good.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we've got a pretty juicy rumor to talk about today. There apparently was a podcast that went live last week, but then was taken down. And in that, Brian Michael Bendis claims that he is leaving Superman soon. And here to talk with me about that, the critical curmudgeon himself, Pele. How you doing?
Oh, better now. I'm doing so much better now. Oh my God, this is wonderful. My dad can actually start buying Superman again.
All right, so here's the quote, and I cannot confirm this. Like I said, the actual podcast has been taken down, and we will talk about that here in a minute. But this is the quote that's going around. This is supposedly from the June 3rd edition of the Off Panel podcast, which would have been episode 257. This is from Brian Michael Bendis on that podcast. I'm heading toward the end of my run on Superman, so I've been more reflective on it, and I will never be more grateful than I got to heal my near-death experience through Superman and then get through this pandemic. And that's from Brian Michael Bendis. So this is pretty good news. If it's true, and I'm going to get into why I do think it's true, but I know this is something you've been waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming. I think essentially what it comes down to is DC needs to stop the bleeding. And having Superman fall so far down in the monthly sales charts, losing subscribers, losing readers at such a prodigious rate, it's just they can't afford it anymore. They can't afford the charity anymore, having Bendis on board has been kind of like charity work for them.
It seemed like a really odd match from the start. Bendis is definitely more known for his work with street level heroes. Superman is anything but street level. It seemed odd that they would give him Superman and Action Comics, but they gave him the entire Superman franchise. He brought in some friends of his, obviously Matt Fraction on Jimmy Olsen, not a big title there. Some other creators on Lois Lane. I think it's Greg Rucka. And it's just kind of tank interest in Superman. When it was selling as a twice monthly series with Peter J. Tomasi on Superman, Dan Jurgens on Action Comics, the sales were actually still better twice monthly than what Bendis' Superman and Action Comics are selling right now as a once monthly book. There was certainly buzz when he came on, and people did enjoy, I believe, the first part of Man of Steel, but he really he lost the plot almost immediately.
Yeah, it's it's not Superman. I just don't think that he understood what Superman was about, and he kind of projected a lot of his own issues. That seems to be a thing that writers do nowadays more than they ever have before, is projecting their own issues onto their characters. But it's just really been terrible to see. It's almost to the point of degrading Superman to kind of make a point about, and I just, like I said, it's bad enough to where it would take long time or even lifelong Superman readers quit the book. And for good reason, it's not the character that they grew up with. It's not not even close to being the character that's been portrayed for 80 years. It's just really bad. It's time for him to go. And I'm almost to the point now where I don't care what the reason is for him leaving. I'm just glad to see the back of him. So
let's get into some of the reasons that I think this is probably true. So we do know there was an episode 257 on off panel podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have the description of that as well. It says, in this week's episode of Off Panel, writer Brian Michael Bendis makes his debut appearance on the show to discuss, really a little bit of everything in his entire career. Bendis discusses his background in art effects, how he thinks about comics and stuff like that. So there's definitely was a podcast. We know that it went up and they took it down. Now, I've heard some rumors on why it was supposedly taken down, but they seemed like complete bullshit, if I'm being completely honest. I don't even want to talk about it. It sounded so ridiculous. But
silly,
if
yeah.
Bendis let the cat out of the bag that he was leaving Superman before DC, or maybe even he was ready to announce it, didn't realize that maybe it got on air, and then they had it taken down and made available again once the plans of him leaving Superman are out there, it makes a lot of sense. And I have all the proof that you ever need. We've got the picture of episode 257 is missing. I have the description of off-panel number 257 with Brian Michael Bendis in there. So we know it definitely exists. And it feels like him leaving Superman would be a reason that he would want it taken down.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I guess Mark Ruffalo is probably known for doing that more as far as on the Marvel side in the movies, kind of sticking his foot in his mouth. And I think that Bendis probably just, for whatever reason, did the same and just let too much out. And, it's not unheard of in any form of media. It's not heard of in comics. So, it looks like that's probably the case. Like I said before, DC, really needs to cut the fat. And that's the whole reason why the whole situation with Diamond is happening, is because, they were very concerned about their sales numbers and very concerned about Diamond being able to live up to their end of the bargain as a distributor. So, it's about money, and these companies are really feeling it now, and along with everybody else, and they're going to do whatever they can to try to get their sales up. And they're not dumb. The bean counters at DC, the bean counters at Warner, and actually the bean counters at Disney aren't dumb. They know what's selling, what's not selling, why it's probably why more than likely it's not selling. And they're pushing it. They're pushing to get the numbers up and get the readership back. And that's the way you do it. Get rid of Bendis. Bring those old readers back, and pump the numbers back up again. I'm hoping that they'll get somebody really, really dynamic, really, to try to reestablish the Man of Steel again.
So I certainly don't think that Bendis will be leaving DC Comics. He has an exclusive contract, and I believe it's quite the lucrative exclusive contract. I believe at one point the plan was for him to eventually move over to Batman. I do not see that happening. James Tynion has huge sales going on with that. Joker War is about to kick off. So I don't see him going to Batman, but I do think obviously he's going to be sticking around. Maybe he'll just keep on Wonder Comics and maybe get another kind of mid-tier character. So unfortunately, he probably is going to stick around, but the good news is it sounds like he will be exiting Superman soon. Although we do know that, in issue 25, he is introducing a new massive villain, a new cosmic villain with Ivan Rice. Hopefully he gets to hand off that to somebody that's more capable and maybe can make the character compelling, because I don't see him doing that with anything associated with Superman.
Yeah, he doesn't have the chops, and whether he did or not for this type of situation is I don't know, but he did well. He did arguably well with Daredevil. I'm sure they can give a street level character, maybe a Nightwing or something like that. Give him Nightwing to write. God, that would probably. Could you imagine what that would do to some of the Nightwing fans?
I'm a Nightwing fan, and I definitely don't want that.
But some other street level type of DC DC character, and keep on the Wonder label, and just keep him occupied, I guess. But as long as they get him off of the mainstream, as long as they get him off of the more cosmic, the super powered characters, and let the people that are more in tune with that type of writing do their work, and hopefully we can see some sales turn around. I'd love to see that.
So just thinking about what's Bendis' time on Superman, it's been very, I would call it destructive. Yes, he has added some new characters. Rogolzar, kind of changed up the origin of the destruction of Krypton. He added in a new character called Red Mist, Red Cloud, something like that. Pretty throwaway. Thought he was adding a big villain named Leviathan. Definitely has not caught on at all. I thought he was going to be doing a Leviathan, or it had been announced that he was going to be doing a Leviathan-centric event to follow up Event Leviathan. Hopefully that's canceled, but I think most everything that he's created, pretty much everything that's new that he has created with Superman is essentially flopped. He has done nothing but really break what was already there and working. He's aged up John Kent, ruined his relationship with his parents,
Yeah.
sent him off to the 31st century, ruined the marriage between Clark Kent, Lois Lane. One of the best parts of Superman lore, it's certainly one of the best, most healthy relationships in DC Comics. Basically, has ruined that. He changed the origin, the whole destruction of Krypton. He's done so much damage during his time there. Do you think that'll ultimately be his legacy on Superman?
Oh yeah, it's got to be. You know, he's just caused so much pain and destruction as far as the character is concerned. You know, I would argue it's even worse than what he did to Batman in a lot of ways. Not what he did, but King did to Batman. It's absolutely just it's just mind-boggling how bad it got. And you know, I guess the one thing that really probably pissed off fans the most was the whole thing where implying that Lois Lane was having an affair with Lex Luthor. You know, I mean, it's just so tacky, and it's so debasing the Man of Steel and tearing him down as if to as if that that's somehow going to make the plot more interesting. It's just it's not what Superman readers buy the book for. They buy the book to see Superman being super, not to see him being
Bendis.
Stepped on, Bendis, So yeah, it's not what fans buy the book for, and hopefully they can get somebody on there now that knows what the character's about, understands the way that the fans love the family. They love the Superman family. They love the relationship between him and Lois Lane. Maybe that dynamic with his son, they can try to bring back John. Maybe the whole thing with, the real John Kent didn't come back. Maybe they can go with that angle. But there's a lot of different avenues that some enterprising writer can come up with. Hopefully they can get it back on track, and they can find a way to repair it and put Superman back together again.
It'll be interesting. We know that Peter J. Tomasi has said, at cons and stuff, that he had more Superman stories that he had written. He had a couple years, I believe, worth that were basically left on the table when he was removed from Superman prematurely, to be completely honest. So I don't know if they'll be able to get him back. Obviously, he's doing great work on Detective Comics. But the last time Superman got this bad, obviously, it wasn't that long ago. It was during the New 52. You had, Superman on a motorcycle wearing, a tight shirt. And just so many stupid things happened with the character that they essentially had to just, kill that version off. And he went away, and they brought back in, another version from another multiverse to take his place, because they had gone so far off the rails with that version of the character. Do you think they'll have to do something that dramatic? I don't think there's going to be another Rebirth, in the pipeline where you could add that into the Rebirth story. Or do you think maybe Tomasi, maybe a Jerkins, maybe even a Robert Venditti can actually take the crap that Bendis has left them and maybe make some chicken salad out of chicken shit?
Yeah, they can try to reconcile he and Lois and reconcile their marriage. Get rid of Jor-El, make him go away, and get the real Jonathan Kent back, and just say that the guy that took off for the Legion, was not the real one, and they go bring the other one back and bring the real one back and try to get back to where they were before Bendis took over. And that's really the best we can hope for right now, because 90% of what Bendis has written is unusable going forward. It's just terrible, and it's sad to see, but I think that it's not beyond repair. It's just going to take some skill, and it's going to take some time.
He has left an indelible mark with Superman, but it's not something he can be proud of. I think it was very derisive. I don't think many people enjoy this. I don't even think Bendis fans really like his take on Superman. He was never really meant to create for a character like that. It is not in his wheelhouse. He was definitely been found wanting. Hopefully this just isn't a rumor. I think it is true. we know that the podcast was definitely up. It is definitely real. Whether he said that quote or not, I cannot confirm that because I haven't been able to listen to it. But I do believe that it is likely correct. Bendis is leaving Superman soon. This is great news for fans of Superman. DC Comics, really in general, and really the comic book industry, they could use a healthy, thriving Superman comic universe to help propel sales because they have dipped dramatically since he took over the title. And I, for one, am very excited. Paley, did you have anything else that you needed to say before we wrap this up?
I think basically it was just that the Superman was too virtuous, really, for Bendis to wrap his head around. The character has too virtuous, too much of a of a polished and a noble spirit, of a decent type of of a shining example for humanity to follow, and Bendis just couldn't wrap his head around it. He couldn't get processed that that's what Superman is. He wanted to make him dirty. He wanted to drag him down, and that's not what you do with Superman, and that's not what the fans buy Superman for. So that's all I got to say.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.